All right. Welcome to the show, Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, building damage experts, live every week for you, a new podcast. And today we have our co-host, well, I'm your host, Richie Kidwell, our co-host, Hans Kennon with Kennon Law Group. How you doing today, man?
Good to see you. Sorry I missed a week or so, but now, trying to find justice for all kind of thing.
That's right. I mean, you needed you need that time to recoup, to reorganize now that you have your new law firm up and firing off on all cylinders. That's exciting.
It is very exciting. It's gone very well. I brought all my staff from Morgan & Morgan, brought all my cases from Morgan & Morgan. People are calling me. Actually, my phone volume, I think, has actually gone up since leaving. I think more people know what I do and are like, hey, now that you're not there, can you help us with this? So that's been very good. I have a lot of people to meet with, and it's all moving the right direction.
That's great. Yeah, that's exciting news, and I'm excited for you with all of this. And you're still and on this show, we focus on property damage specifically. Yep. Is that still your? Excuse me. Is that still your main practice?
It is. There's been a lot of changes to the statutes that have changed a lot of things for a lot of folks. But really, we still specialize in helping people who have a denied or underpaid claim, whatever that may be. If it's your house, if it's your life insurance, disability insurance, auto insurance, other things like that. Anytime where your insurer has denied or underpaid your claim, we're happy to help you and happy to talk to you about that. Again, we do specialize primarily in homeowners, which is the more prevalent calls we get, folks who have broken pipes, issues with their roofs, things along those lines.
Nice. Awesome. And that's great that is now up on its own, and I'm excited for you. And that kind of leads into my next guest, our next guest here on the show, the use of specialized experts in the property damage arena. That's what we talk about a lot here on the show. We've talked to folks such as roofers, home inspectors, to plumbers, drywall fixer-upper guys. And so with all those specialized experts, we all work in this industry. We are a show by contractors for contractors here with Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. I love to focus on these types of, I'll say, matters or issues, because it's only an issue whenever you get involved in this type of scenario, which rarely happens. I think about once every 10 years, maybe once in a lifetime, does a big event happen in your property in which you need to get involved, or your insurance involved.
And housing more and more it's so complicated. It really is. We all kind of live in our house, and you don't really realize everything that goes on between windows and negative pressure and positive pressure and mold and water intrusion and all those things. We used to say, when I was in the casino business, we used to say that the fact you sleep in a bed doesn't make you director of hotel operations. And it's kind of the same thing for the folks we have on the show. You can go, hey, I got a hole in the wall. Well, that's a lot different than fixing it. Right. Hey, I got water, I have mold in my closet. Okay, what are you going to do about it? So again, housing structures and envelopes, as they call them, have become much more complicated. You really do need specialized help in organizing that, getting it fixed. And I think we were going to talk to a public adjuster, today, right?
Right, that's correct. His name is David Dwyer with Experienced Public Adjusters. I'm going to get him on the phone and bring him into our conversation. I think it's important, especially as we come up to storm season here in the state of Florida. You want to be prepared, and we're going to talk about some of those things, how to be prepared ahead of time, and to put some numbers in your cell phone in case it does happen. Now we only have 1 year to report a loss in the state of Florida, and you think, wow, that's a long time.
Boy, it's a blink.
It's really not.
Because the year runs from the day of the storm, not the day you discover the damage, not the day you realize there's a problem. Sometimes based on the level of damage and how the house is set up, it could be months before you actually even see the results of a storm. And all of a sudden that time is now gone against that claim, against the time to do a supplemental claim. There's a lot of those issues that arise with that. And public adjusting is very helpful to the extent that it helps focus you on the things that you forget you own.
That's right.
If you close your eyes and think about your living room, I'll bet you're going to leave out some decor, some table, some this, some that, much less your own personal closet. If you close your eyes and go, how many pairs of shoes do I have? And people go, I don't know, like 5. No, you got 25. How many pairs does your wife have? 12. No, she has like 30, man. Just dig a little bit.
Do you have any photos? And all these questions come up. And so before you're behind the 8 ball, let's get you some help now. I'm going to give him a call. Let's bring him in. His name is David Dwyer. Let's see how we do here. It's like the old school.
It is.
Yeah.
Hello, this is David Dwyer.
Hey, David, what's up, man? This is Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell. How's it going, brother?
Good, how you doing?
Awesome. We have Hans Kennon as well, and we have you on the show. We should play some of the background stuff for Entrada here for David. There you go. There you go. He's brought his own crowd here to the show. There we go.
Oh, nice.
So I was just catching Hans up here with there's been a lack of information here from the last couple of years. I said, he ran in the as a state representative, and we need to get him back up there. But we have a lot of blanks to fill in since last time we had you on the show in the radio show a year or so ago, maybe even 2 years. Time is flying.
A long
by.
time, man.
Yeah, so looking to get caught up with you, David, to hear what's been happening the last couple of years and what you got going on today. So love to catch up with you, man.
Sounds good. Yeah, no, I've just went back to work. I took some time off after the election in October. I guess it was October of 2022, and I went up to North Carolina. I'm also a licensed adjuster up there. And spent some time in the Carolina Mountains and beautiful Western North Carolina. And I came back down here in December to get back to work because I've been getting a lot of calls from people that are getting denied religiously, it seems like, from some of the well-known carriers that are out there. And and there's not a lot of relief out there because they don't have any reason to pay claims anymore. So carriers are just denying across the board. So.
Hey, isn't that the truth? With all the law changes, they made it softer on insurance companies here in the state of Florida to get away with pretty much murder, not having to pay the insured, and then no penalty on top of that, where we had that statute that would relieve the homeowner of having to pay for monies that are rightfully owed to them. For instance, on a $10,000 roof dispute, if they owe you $10,000, you should get paid $10,000. That's what they owe you for the repairs. But now with this law change last year from our bought out governor, I voted for him twice, really like the guy. But man, when you get bought out by the quote unquote insurance crisis, or how they're going to be able to print out $100 million in the middle of the crisis is beyond me. But that's what was given to our governor in exchange for this major tort reform, which really just screwed all of the homeowners here in the state of Florida. And so what we're seeing, because of no penalties, these insurance companies are getting away with underpaying or wrongfully denying homeowners. The book is true. Delay, deny, defend, and that's exactly what they're doing. And there's only two sources you can go to at that point, and they're all on this phone call right now, right? I mean, you can only go to a public adjuster or to an attorney. Yep. And that's where you go to as your next steps. And as we get into storm season, I really wanted to promote you, David. I mean, as we know, public adjusters are essential to putting the package together, which now are on different timelines now. Oh, yeah. With the law change last year for public adjusters, now they have 30 days to propose an estimate to the insured and 60 days to turn in the sworn proof of loss, which is everything. Indemnity, plus services that have been performed in ALE, anything up to that point that needs to be reimbursed needs to be given by then. And good luck on finding a contractor to give you quote unquote 3 bids after a storm or major event. I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, the whole 3 bid thing is a fallacy too. I mean, the insurers that will tell the insured, go get 3 estimates. I can't get 3 estimates to do anything. Right. In a modern world that we live in. In the old days, it was kind of one thing. But these days, and the 3 estimate rule, or whatever they want to call it, doesn't exist in the policy. No. There's nothing in the insurance policy that says you as a homeowner, have to go adjust your own claim by getting your own estimates for something that the insurer should be doing. The insurer, should be sending out someone to adjust the loss. That's part of what you pay for with your premium. When they go out, they're supposed to go, let me figure out what this is to fix, what is the cost to repair. But the whole 3 estimates is completely just to run you around, so you won't bother the adjuster till you get the 3 estimates. You don't get 3 estimates, what you do is you quit. You go, well, they said I needed 3, I only got 2. I guess I can't get my claim paid. And ideally, for the insurer, they just stop trying. But
I believe it's all part of the big con, right? So the reason why they ask for three bids is because they want you to go out. They want the homeowner who doesn't know anything to go out and get subcontractor bids, and then meanwhile they'll get a window quote, they'll get a stucco quote, they'll get a roof quote, or they'll get an interior drywall quote. But there's no overhead and profit built in, so it eventually saves the insurance company money because they're like, all right, well that's what it's going to cost you to fix. But then the reality is that they're going to need to hire a general contractor, and there's overhead and profit, there's supervision that's requirement, there's code that's involved that no subcontractor knows about, because we all know that most every salesperson that runs out there from a roofing company is not a licensed roofer. He's a sales guy, so he doesn't know what he's talking about. So at the end of the day, when there's some kind of code issue or they hit the 51% threshold, then there's an awful lot more money that's owed to that insured, but the insured doesn't even know that they're owed that money. So at the end of the day, when they sell the house, they can't sell the house because they have diminished value, and the real value of the house is worth a lot less than it would have been pre-loss, right? So, I mean, it's just a nightmare. I hate to say it, but my own part, like Richie said, I mean, Governor DeSantis, I supported him. I ran on the same ticket that he ran in 2022. And then Christmas time came along and I went and looked at all the Republicans in the state house, took all this money from big insurance companies, and they passed this over Christmas so that no one would be paying attention. And then Governor DeSantis signed it into law because he was going to run for president, and he figured he'd be out of the state of Florida when the next storm hit. Well, guess what, buddy? You're here. So I hope it hits, because I'm going to have some kind words for you. And I hate to say it, but Anna Eskamani, who is my competitor in that race, she actually got on the floor during the when they were speaking regarding this legislation, and she actually was talking about the low income, how it would adversely affect them. And she's 100% right, because if you take somebody that has to now charge 33 to third as an attorney, and you have a public adjuster that gets 10%, and you get them to say, all right, well, we have to look at the costs that are associated with that. Well, the attorney has to pay for the court filing, he has to pay for his court reporter. There's a lot of additional hardcore costs that they have to pay for out of their own pocket. Well, if you have a $20,000 loss and you're in low-income housing, or you have a $200,000 house, which is very rare here in the state of Florida anyway, but let's say it's in a hypothetical area somewhere outside of Pine Hills, for example. Well, no attorney in the world can take that claim for a $20,000 roof, because they can't afford if they're going to collect 33 and a third, they're going to collect about $7,000 total max, right, on the claim. Well, 2 depositions would already eat up the cost of that. So how are they going to take it to trial? They can't. So without the prevailing party statute, everybody in the state of Florida is getting hurt. They should have at least kept it for the insured. I mean, that was a minor issue. But then you have the crooked insurance companies hiring their own engineering firms, and we all know how corrupt that is.
Yeah.
So now the insured doesn't have the right to hire their own counter expert to go against the crooked vendors that are working for the insurance. And I won't mention their names, but we all know who they are.
Oh yeah. And there are costs to the claim or for them, right? But that's what the insurance companies say. They'll go out and hire that engineer to then disqualify that claim and saying, oh well, it's wear and tear, it's all this other stuff except for a named peril that we'll cover. So therefore, we don't cover it, and it's not our determination or our decision. It's based off of the expert that we hired to come out there and do that.
Right. It's kind of a fake plausible deniability. Like, oh, we don't know. We just listened to the engineer. Oh, you mean the engineer you guys paid $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million to last year? You mean that guy, your independent engineer, you know?
The last time the reports I read some of them slip up and send them to you, and they all look exactly the same, with the same construction defect and maintenance wear and tear written on it. If it's an asphalt shingled roof, if it's a tile roof, it's construction defect or late defect and foot traffic. So
and thermal. My favorite's thermal expansion and contraction.
Love
personal
that one.
favorite.
Right. I mean, I have then my new favorite is thermal radiation. I love that. We're in the state of Florida. It's literally sunshine broke the roof. I love that. That's got to be my favorite. It used to be the foot traffic, and the funniest thing, it was the first one that we got was literally an 80-plus-year-old husband and wife, and we're like, so are you saying the homeowners get bored and just walk up and down their roof just for the hell of it? Or it was around Christmas time, so like maybe Santa did it. Santa screwed up the roof.
Santa Claus, right?
You know,
what they don't realize is going to happen is you're going to have a storm that comes through. Let's say hypothetically it comes through this year in September, and you're going to have hundreds of thousands of homes that are affected by this, and they're not going to have any way to. We have an inflation problem in this country right now, so we're going to have all these houses now that have losses that aren't being paid. Even if they can get an attorney, you're looking at 2.5 years, 3 years to get through the court systems to maybe possibly get after you pay an attorney and let's say a public adjuster, you might walk away with 50%. If you just go through an attorney, you might, if that's where you have to go, you're walking away with 60%. Well, what if you can't fix the house? Because I think it's 62% of all Americans right now are living paycheck to paycheck, month to month. If you have that, so where are you going to come up with the money, the extra 40%? Because when you pay an attorney 33 1/3, you're not paying them with insurance money anymore. You're paying with them with what's being paid out of your damages. So if you have $100,000 in damages, you have to come up with that $33,000 to pay for your house. Well, guess what's going to happen? All 100,000 of those people who are living paycheck to paycheck are going to just go into foreclosure, squat in their houses, and then eventually they'll walk. So we have another 2007 collapse coming here in Florida.
Right. Well, no more squatting now in the state of Florida. That issue was already summed up by our governor as well too. But
we'll call them bank repos. Then we'll call them the bank repos. Right. I mean, that's what will happen. All the houses will be sold by the banks.
And they really will, and that's going to be a negative on what they were actually trying to do, in which is try to save us money as consumers, and that has not happened at all. Rate reduction was the whole purpose of all of the special sessions, and we did not get that. And Hans and I both looked at all of those bills and try to find the words rate and reduction next to each other anywhere, and those hundreds and hundreds of pages just never existed, just does not exist. But David, you brought up a good point, right? Is that these folks are only going to get paid a certain percentage, 60% maybe on their lucky day after fees and costs from Hans's law firm and your percentage as a public adjuster. But here are the pluses, right? If they did not have you, they're coming out of pocket much more than they would by having a professional, because you know it and I know it, that when they finally get the contractor involved, now they start ripping things apart, and then change orders start to happen. And like, oh, this, and this. So not only did they get 60 cents on the dollar that they thought of damages that existed, but they really lost out on all of that knowledge and expertise that you bring in as a public adjuster. What is the average percentage of an increase that you can get a homeowner that what they could on their own? What is that average?
Well, I mean, since my company opened in 2018, we collected close to $50 million in settlements for Florida homeowners. And I would say that the difference is that, well, they did a study back in, I think it was about 10 years ago. And Richie, you might know the name of it was an independent study done. It was reported by the state. It was like a 700% increase when public adjusters are involved. I would say that's a pretty fair number that we would say is a recovery number. I mean, you usually get offered $1,000 by certain companies, let's say hypothetically State Farm or Universal out there. And then
all the
Citizens, FIGA, which I have my own issues with them too right now. But I don't know if you guys knew this, but they have an immunity clause. So their adjusters under Florida statute 631.66 have an immunity clause, which means that the adjusters can't be reported to DFS for any kind of fraud, any kind of violating their administrative codes, their ethics codes. There's nothing you can do. We've tried for the last 2 months to report certain adjusters that are working for FIGA, and they're just throwing it back at us saying, sorry, read code. And I'm like, all right, I can read the code, but you're telling me that there's absolutely nothing so this guy can just literally be a crook and with the insurance, with FIGA, steal from my insured and literally just say there's nothing you can do about it except file a lawsuit. So we can't do anything pre-suit against FIGA, which is crazy. But we do have an attorney on, and I guess I'd like to hear him address something. Something I've heard recently is there is a way to counter the fees. I think it's through a declaratory actions. There's ways you can collect fees or start fees when you file a PFS. I think it's when you file a PFS, correct? If you file a PFS early enough and they don't accept it, then you can still start collecting fees. Is that correct?
Yeah, under 768.79, which is the offer of judgment statute, which has a corresponding rule, 1.442 for the proposal for settlement, you can serve that on the 91st day after you file suit as a plaintiff. And then from that point forward, in that PFS proposal for settlement, you state an amount that needs to be 25% less than what you're actually seeking. And if the insurer does not accept it and you proceed to trial and you obtain a verdict greater than that, again, it's a little technical, but essentially greater than what the amount you asked for, you can then make a claim for attorney's fees and costs.
That's great. And then also I heard
really trying to show the homeowner. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So one other thing I wanted to add to that, and I want to ask Hans this as being the attorney here on the show. I heard though, if FIGA outright denies you, then you can seek fees and costs from them. Is that right?
You can. FIGA, it's kind of a weird issue in the statute. They have to affirmatively deny the claim, which is an odd kind of thing. But you actually have to get proof that they affirmatively denied. There was a case came out a couple of years ago where they didn't pay it, but they didn't deny it. It was one of those crazy things where so the courts came out. So they have to have an affirmative denial of the claim. Then FIGA is liable for attorney's fees and costs, just like an insurance company would have been. So yes.
So essentially what they've done, I guess we'll break it to layman's terms. What they've done is they made it so confusing for the layman's homeowner in the state of Florida that people like me and Hans have to get on and we'll have to spend hours filtering through the different laws and then strategizing on how to settle the claim. And we do know what we're doing, and that's obviously why I brought this up for you, Hans, is to discuss how there is a way to counter some of the fees.
Sure.
But the reality is that for a regular homeowner, they wouldn't have an absolute clue. Like most of the time, they're just getting a denial letter, and we're getting a ton of phone calls right now, and I'll say it out loud because we are getting them from State Farm, which, in my opinion, sounds like they're just blanket denying claims out there, but I don't know that for sure. So allegedly, we'll say allegedly,
they are not a good neighbor.
I'm not supporting them right now. But what I guess I'll say to that is that hiring a public adjuster, at least that has intelligence, that knows what they're doing and knows the law, is going to at least have a way to navigate the claim. And a lot of times we will get them settled, but there are times where we still have to go to litigation. And I guess what I've been telling homeowners right now is that if you have a $100,000 loss and the insurance company says absolutely not, we're not paying you anything, well, then even if you only got a certain percentage of the loss paid back to you, it's better than nothing, because the other option is nothing. Right. And that's really where we stand right now.
Yeah, and I've literally been discussing that along with the folks in the industry, is that you have to get used to saying 70% of something or 60% of something is better than 100% of nothing. Yeah. And that's, unfortunately, that's the new communication now to the homeowners. Now, right before the law change, we had Hurricane Ian. So on September 28th, 2022, it was just a blink ago, we had Hurricane Ian. At that time, the law was 2 years to report first notice of claim, 3 years to supplement, meaning that you still have time today, because it hasn't hit 9/28/2024 yet. Correct. So you still have 2 years under that law to report claim. And so you still can. Do you want to report it this late? Probably not. But you still have time to have a professional come out, take a look at the damages. Like, for instance, if you don't live here in the state of Florida and you finally get around to getting a contractor to come out, I'm sure you can possibly get around it. But this is where, these weird questions, you do need to have, and possible claims and free inspections and those types of things. The best bet right now is to not, and I have a lot of other professional folks that we have on the show, and I love every proficiency of them. But sometimes if you have these hard choices, you have to call a lawyer, you have to call a public adjuster. A lot of these times they'll come out for no charge. And I know David's team will, as a public adjuster, come out and do a free inspection and just tell you what you can possibly recover. It doesn't cost you anything but your time as a client to have you take a look at it. And like I said, back then the law was that 2 years, 3 years of supplement. Now it's 1 year to file first notice of claim. So it's good to know what or who your team is before we go into storm season. So my prediction is going to be an early storm. I think we're going to get hit in August of this year. I'm going to go with August 28th. Wow. To be specific.
It's a bold move, as they would say.
I feel it a little bit early this year, man. I don't think it's going to be late in the game. Like we had Hurricane Michael was 10/10 of 18. We had Irma,
September 17th.
Yeah,
of 17, something along those lines.
Are you also betting on Paul versus Tyson with that bet?
Oh, crying out loud! Is that really a thing? I mean, dude, I'll just say this: he's gonna. Tyson's going to smash him in the first round, dude. I don't even think he's got a chance.
I believe Mike Tyson actually said it best when he said, "Everyone has a plan till they get hit in the face."
Right.
So I'm going, but I always take Tyson over anybody. The guy's like, he's a killing machine.
Yeah, that's literally what he was manufactured for in this life, for sure. Yeah. And so to see,
he can admit that I'm old enough to remember seeing his fight. So yeah, I am though.
I love how Mike Tyson said he's like I'm going to retire him so he can go to WWE with his brother. He said that's where he belongs. He doesn't belong in the ring. I was like, dude, that's awesome.
Man, that's great.
That's great.
Well, I will bring up something that talk about your services, Richie. Like we just had a fire claim, and I'm pretty sure Stacy's adjusting the claim where the carrier is not trying to pay anything for contents. The homeowner's had it for I think 6 to 9 months. She's already been fighting this claim on her own. And again, I'm not dealing with it directly, but I've heard from Stacy through conference calls regarding this claim. And the carrier, of course, will say, "Well, we don't have to replace the tile. We don't have to replace the cabinets. We don't have to replace all kinds of things that they don't have to replace because they're saying smoke, soot, and residue doesn't do damage to them, when we all know it does.
That's crazy.
But in order to get those kind of claims paid, there's like reports, like companies like Richie's will offer Richie, you can talk about the reports that you do with residue and soot, which has been those kind of reports are like, I would call them gold when it comes to the adjusting industry, because without those reports, we don't have a fight. Besides, we can use NEMA and some of the books out there that, we can talk about what we know, right? But without something from a licensed assessor that sends something off to the lab that specifically says this and this has to be replaced, we don't really have a fight. So I don't know. You might want to touch on that, Richie.
Right. I mean, and that's a great point. I mean, the insurance companies use experts all the time. They use engineering firms. They use IAQ companies, which are indoor quality companies, to on their side to deny the claim or delay the claim or underpay or undervalue the claim by using the professionals. And like we always say, who's working for you? We're working for you on our side. So you need to have a professional that will work for you, the homeowner, and not for the insurance company. And so and that's what I've done great as far as AQA is branded that company to be for the homeowner specifically. And but I'm telling you, well, let me go back to the law change. Now, one thing, I mean, they did take away fees and costs for attorneys' fees, but what they didn't take away are costs for experts, and I'm glad that they didn't. Those are a reimbursable cost to the claim. So fortunately, if you do have to hire Hans, or you have to get an attorney involved if you're a client on a property insurance claim specifically, and they hire an engineer or an expert to come out to your home, well, your attorney or your representative is going to have to hire an expert to prove the other side. Let the best expert win.
A lot of that with that, insurers are big on using engineers. We talked about before in the show, people inherently want to believe an engineer because engineers are ones who build buildings and bridges and things that keep us safe. People really inherently want to believe them. I think insurers were smart to utilize engineers, but really when you deal with enough engineers in this area of law, and I had a guy the other week who said, I found 2 shingles that were damaged. One of them was damaged in October of 2022. The other was damaged in December of 2022. And I'm like, so you're saying, well, Richie, the one on the one side of the slope, that was the wind came from that direction that day, just single day picked out of thousands of days. And I'm like, you're trying to tell me you can tell me the date within a reasonable degree of engineering probability that caused that one shingle to lift? He's like, oh, absolutely I can. I mean, it's the craziest thing because when you depose engineers and you said, well, when's the last time you took a class in roofing? It's always, well, we talked about it in college. Well, no disrespect. I've only been out of college, 30 years. Well, have you had a class in roofing? Have you taken, and I had a guy recently, and I talk about Hague certification. It's HAAG,
right,
which at least is a recognized group to certify people. They actually have class this week or next week going on in Tampa for residential certification. I have some of my clients going over, some roofing clients, guys I work with.
Yeah. All of my guys are minimally Hague certified because they are on their side, right? I mean, it just makes sense to have the same certification.
But it's funny. So the same guy who told me he could discern the 2 shingles, how they were broken. I said, "Are you Hague certified?" He said, "No." And I'm like, "Any reason why not?" And he was like, "Nope." Any problem with that? With the fact that other people are? He goes, "No." I mean, he completely was very oddly dismissive of the fact that he wasn't Hague. So he literally had no roof certifications whatsoever, other than he'd been on a lot of roofs. So again, we tell this to our listeners all the time too. If the insurer says, we're not sure, we're going to send an engineer, you're getting denied. Like it's
exactly.
it's a guarantee. I will guarantee I'll put $1,000 on the desk here and just go, next time an engineer comes to your house and you get a claim approved, you let me know and I'll send you the money.
That's right. For real. I mean, anybody that has gotten that notice, any one of our clients, especially, they call and they'll say, well, the engineer for the insurance company's coming out on this date. And we're like, okay, what time do you want us to come out? Because we know that you're going to have an offsetting report to get to that next stage. I say this all the time. Property insurance claims are like a chess match. and if they feel like they've pushed a piece forward, it literally, you have to be prepared to push your chess piece forward. And the only way to do that is match them where they're at. For instance, you file the claim, adjuster comes out, adjusts the claim, and if it's not to your satisfaction, that's where the dispute may arise. And at that point, experts are brought in. That's where you bring in your GC, and they'll bring in their adjuster. And a lot of these adjusters, unfortunately, don't have any training when they come from the insurance company. Let's talk about Snake Farm, for instance. They'll have, especially after a major storm or event, they'll have people that were literally a pig farmer beforehand, and it was in the paper, so I didn't make this up. But after the Hurricane Michael specifically, was where this article came out, there was somebody that was a pig farmer literally a week before the storm of Hurricane Michael, did a 1-week training, or not even a week training.
It's because he gets an emergency license.
Right. They get that declared, and these insurance companies will set out in the middle of these devastated areas and get locals and come there and say, hey, I'm going to teach you a couple things, and then we're going to give you an emergency license, and you're going to go out and adjust these claims, and you're going to do it how we want you to do it.
I had a guy like that, a younger guy, and no disrespect to folks getting into a trade. I mean, that's fine. But it was a 5-building condominium unit, not a huge building, but I mean substantial. And I was talking to the deposing the adjuster, and it's a younger guy. And I said, how do you determine that the roofs were not damaged? He said, based on all my experience. And I said, oh, all your experience. How many days were you licensed as an adjuster before you went out and did this job? 9. And I'm like, so 9 whole days. And that include weekends or not? I mean, literally, it was just because, that's what you could tell. That's what he was taught to say, all my experience. And I'm just like, 9 days, man. I mean, you can say a lot of things, but you don't tell me in all your 9 days experience that made you qualified to render an opinion on 5 condo buildings. But yeah, I hear that all the time based on my knowledge, training, and experience. Yes.
Wow, they do have a script that they give these guys. That's insane. That's insane. I mean, my point is that you need representation. If you're a homeowner, you're an insured. I'm telling you, you are a lamb and surrounded by lions, and you have to be protected. And before we go into storm season, that's why I wanted us to have on the show. We're on Spotify, iTunes, anywhere that you can stream, you can hear us. And I want to make sure that we outline how we can get a hold of you, David Dwyer, with Experienced Public Adjusting, ahead of a storm season. If somebody has a question about their policy or needs you ahead of time, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, we have offices from Tampa to Daytona and a couple in Orlando, but our 800 number is 888-881-8416. That's 888-881-8416.
All right. And online at your website, experiencedpublicadjusters.com?
Experience with a D, public, and adjusters with an S.com. Yes, sir.
There you go. That's how you find them, or all of the Google reviews and everything. Always do your research. I tell everybody on our show, if you're listening, we have folks on here, but always do your research on the contractor, on the public adjuster, on the attorney that you're using. They should have property experience, more than 9 whole days, and to bring the experience to you. The reason why it's called Experienced Public Adjusters is because they are. And David Dwyer has been around for a long time. Many different claims, from residential to commercial, everything in between. A car goes through a house, your house goes on fire, whatever. If there's a property claim, he can help you. And that's not too far from off. I mean, 700% more is what a public adjuster can get you on average than what you can do yourself. Can you imagine, especially now, if you have to pay your own fees and costs to bring this litigation, if you have to, or pay for your appraisal and umpire and all this stuff, then you're going to need that extra, and it's not anything that's not owed. So we're not saying there's anything illegal. He's just finding things that you wouldn't have found on your own, bringing the experience of saying, hey, as soon as they pull this off, there's going to be this and this laminate that's going to be messed up, or this extra ice barrier, or this extra this, whatever, something you didn't know about, that when they start pulling that off, like, oh crap, here comes a change order, and you, the insured, have to pay for it out of your own pocket. And so catch it ahead of time by bringing the experienced folks in. And of course, if you go to litigation, if you have to, on that one time with your property or auto, any dispute that you have with your insurance company, it's Hans Kennon with now Kennon Law Group. So I'd love for you to give our clients, our listeners here, how to get a hold of you as well.
Sure. My cell phone is 407 407-782-0258, 407-782-0258, or else you can also call the office is 407-464-HANS, H-A-N-S, 407-464-HANS, which is 4267. Have any issues about your policy or any claim determination, feel free to give me a call, and we're happy to help you with that. Keep in mind, the insurer, as Richie always says, they really always deny to a great extent. And certain people simply accept the denial and go, well, okay, we made a claim, I guess it didn't work out. Then another group says, I disagree. I think we should do more investigation. They're the ones who get the engineers, and then they definitely get turned down. Mm-hmm. Then there's another group who says, I don't care what the engineer says. I'm calling a public adjuster. I'm calling a lawyer. And if the other 8 people would actually step up and go, you know what, that's not right. I'm not being treated fairly. I'm not being treated correctly. It would actually go a long way to helping to fix the system. People still, it's a revolutionary world still. People still have to stand up and complain about conduct. Mm-hmm. And the longer you just go, well, you know, they said we didn't have a claim. Or the engineer said we didn't have a claim. Have that analyzed. Always, you know, trust but verify, I guess, if you want to.
That's right.
If you're old school enough, I'm getting old, you know, still want to trust people, want to trust organizations, been around a long time. Reagan said, trust but verify, and he was right then and he'd be right today.
That's right. That's right.
I agree with that. Hans, I was going to add something maybe you can share with people publicly on the air. Recently, I understand there's been some new case law that's out there that allows for insurance companies to take pictures from the homeowner and then make claim determinations on that. Would you like to address that a little bit and maybe advise homeowners what not to provide?
Well, certainly over the last year.
Kind of a loaded question, a little bit loaded.
No. But last couple of years, the one thing that kind of a corollary to what David brought up, the insurers are now allowed to use Google Earth photos without any other verification. For many, many years, those photos were not viewed as authentic and not allowed to be used by the insurance company in support of claims determination. So keep in mind, though, as of 2022, they're now entitled to bring those photos in without any verification other than, yep, looks like your house. So keep that in mind just for if you're making a claim for yourself. You can look up your own house. So feel free to do that. And if you have an idea you have certain types of damage, you want to maybe confirm when those photos are taken, confirm things for dates of loss. Some insurers are very picky about what date you say it happened. Sometimes you don't actually know, and that's okay too. But you certainly don't want to give a date that the insurer can latch onto and go, you're making that up. You're making up a date of loss. Again, your only obligation is to prove that a loss occurred within the policy period, which is 1 year. So, you know, if you have an issue with data loss, it's normally not a big deal. What David's talking about also is the fact that an insurer can essentially make you into the adjuster by analyzing the photos that you've taken and utilize them for their benefit. Now, when you take a photo, it's like anything. If an engineer takes a photo, or Richie Kidwell takes a photo, or Dave takes a photo, more so than myself, they're taking a photo for a specific reason. Now, that reason, if you're an insurer, might be to not show any damage. And then you go and you're just taking photos so you don't know what you're looking at. They can use essentially your own photos as what we would call an admission against interest. They can literally use the photos you take as a basis for denial or approval of your claim, and you're kind of stuck with those photos. So again, part of your premium is the insurer supposed to come adjust the claim themselves, not make you into their adjuster. And then when you take photos of the wrong stuff, because you're not sure what you're really looking for, that gets used against you and you get stuck with that. That's why for Richie's company, which handles mold investigations and engineering reports, and David coming out and making sure everything gets accounted for, photos matter. Photos are worth 1,000 words, as they say, and photos of the right stuff are worth 10,000 words because they're important. And if you take the wrong photos, your claim's going to get denied and you'll be stuck.
That's right. That's right. And another part of the law that changed is that they are allowing photographic evidence to be as evidence into the court.
Like the Google Earth stuff I was talking about?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so...
Yeah, a friend of mine from Right Hawks was posting about it, and we had a long discussion. I can't remember the case law. That's why I didn't know Hans knew it off the top of his head. But certain case law just went to the appellate courts, I guess, and it was ruled on that. So essentially, the carriers can now, on every call when you open a claim, on the intake call, say to please send me to this link or upload your photos. And then the homeowner in the first 3 hours when they're frantic is sending every photo they have. And those photos are now used so they don't have to technically come out to the property to adjust the claim. They can investigate technically based off that based off those photographs. Technically, is what that's what I'm hearing anyway.
Oh,
So
yeah, no. I said absolutely. I mean, the insurer, obviously they're allowed to ask for your photos anyway, but the distinction was they used to have to actually come adjust the claim in person. In theory, a human would come to your home and do the inspection and walk around and look around, not just basically, stay at home in the Barco lounger while wait for the insured's photos to come in of the damage. Again, insured's, look, I've looked at thousands of photos, so I know you guys have too. I've looked at thousands of photos where I go, what is that? Right. Like, what? I mean,
or what in the blurry hell is that? It's like,
or the photos like let's say you got a problem with a roof, with a part of your roof. People take photos that are like 5 inches from the shingle, and then no other photo to tell you where that photo is. There's no perspective shot. So all the time you get things that you can't use. But again, water runs downhill, right? Gravity pushes water. So people are taking shots of the bottom of the bottom of the slope, not the top of the slope where the water is actually coming in. I mean, there's a value in experience, and you have to take advantage of that. And for guys like Dave and Richie, who are there to provide that expertise, trust me, you're gonna take a photo of the wrong stuff.
Right.
Well, and then a lot of times you'll find homeowners that are do-it-yourselfers, and they'll hear from the insurance company and say, "Oh, go up and take pictures of your roof." So they get up and they photograph the roof while they're standing on it. Well, what do you think the insurance company can use to deny you for now? They're going to now they implement the quick traffic rules to deny your claim because they sent you up to take pictures of your roof, but you stepped on the roof, so now it's denied because you damaged it, not the storm.
Footfall,
So
the famous footfall.
Exactly.
My recommendation to everybody is just stop what you're doing. When you have a claim, right before you call it in, or when you do call it in, that's fine. Tell them, you know what, I'm going to hold off. I'm going to speak to somebody else who's an expert first, either an attorney or a public adjuster. Let us come out and look at it, and do not provide them any photographs or any pictures or make any comments or recorded statements with them until after you have someone on your side. And now you're required by law or per policy language to give the recorded statement. And if you don't give it, they could use that against you. So I would tell you to wait so that we could at least be there on the call with you to at least tell you if they're asking things they shouldn't be asking. It's not appropriate. And of course, an attorney would be better suited for anything regarding the law to be able to stop them from asking questions like, have you been through a bankruptcy recently? Or,
well, what's your credit score?
Right. It's like, what does that have to do with anything? That's crazy.
But it's amazing that they will ask those questions. They really will. I mean, there's so much that people just don't know in the world that we live in, I guess. And I've been asked as an adjuster so many different questions. I'm sure you have too,
Sure.
People that talk to you and they have no idea. They don't realize they're being trapped or they're being led. And the reality is insurance companies are about profit. So they're leading you down a path so they can deny your claim. That's really what their intent is. I mean, I don't know that there's any, I hate to say this, but I've never come across an ethical company that is intentionally trying to pay your claim. Like, it just doesn't happen. It's just not the way they are. Like, Chubb is probably one of the best insurance companies I've seen out there. And in other states, they operate great. But in Florida, I've seen them go the other direction too, where I've had a claim settle for close to $2 million that was paid less than $50,000 from the initial claim. So, again, I'm not specifically speaking badly about anybody. Sometimes it's the adjuster, but there's rules that regulate adjusters too on the insurance side. And there's a law out there, 69B-220.201B, and it specifically says that an adjuster shall not undertake the adjustment of any claim concerning which the adjuster is not currently competent and knowledgeable as to the terms and conditions of the insurance coverage, or which otherwise exceeds the adjuster's current expertise. So to your example of the guy that had 9 days, he's in violation of 69B-220. I would report him immediately just from stepping on the property with only having 9 days experience. Let the DFS regulatory agency investigate him and see whether he's competent to handle a fire claim of a $2 million commercial loss.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, if they
Just
will.
like
Does that department do anything against the insurance companies or the adjusters? I heard recently that they kicked out a lot of appointments by quote unquote accident, and it's funny is that I heard it on the other side too, on the agency side. One of my friends is an agent and sells insurance, and his appointment got wrongfully canceled. He had to call up the DFS and be like, "Give me my appointment back," and they're like, "Oh, reapply and pay the fee." He's like, no, like give it to me back without any time lapse in between or a new application and give you a new number. It's like, no, give me my stuff back. And I've had public adjusters say the same thing. I lost my appointment. I just got something in the mail that says you don't have an appointment. And so there's some FUBAR going on with DFS. The state of Florida is just a mess right now in all of their agencies. I don't know what the hell they're doing. DFS is just guarded by, it's just by chickens. So let's just go that far. We've got nobody in the helm there. You got bought out Jamie Petronas, the $3.5 million he raised for him to run for CFO, all by insurance companies. Yeah, 100%. Besides my like $20,000 lunch or whatever I had with that douchebag. Anyways, whatever.
They haven't taken phone calls in 2 years. Everything has to be done by email now, and you have to wait 30 days before you can get a response from the service number on a complaint against the insurance company adjuster that comes out to your property if he's in direct violation. And then it's like 6 months before you never hear an answer back to what happened. So usually what the insurance does, it just switches adjusters really quickly, and they say then they file you could talk to this, Hans, a motion of protection order that guy never gets deposed.
Right, and they keep switching it around. What are you going to do, right? I mean, you lose so much time, and that's what they do: delay, deny, defend. They are the kings of delaying paying anything. They make money off of money being in their bank account, so it's on their side for them to push it far along as they possibly can.
Well, I think what David said makes sense too. I mean, obviously these companies are for profit, so it's kind of a perverse relationship. They sell stock on the market that they want to increase their share price. Only way they can do that is by paying fewer claims and taking in more money. Mm-hmm. I mean, which is weird. Now you buy Pepsi Cola. Well, you buy their stock because they want to sell more Pepsi, but they're not taking money away from people, to do that. They're simply selling more of a product. On the insurance side, they can only increase their profit if they pay fewer claims and charge people more. I mean, so you go, well, okay, charging people more. That's the same thing with Coca-Cola. Yeah, but they're not paying less. They're not giving you less. You're not buying a can with 12 ounces in and getting 6 ounces in the can, which is what the insurer has to do. They have to literally take in more money and pay less out.
Right. So they are. I mean, they're filling it up maybe a quarter of the way now because now the policies, they used to include certain perils, and now they don't. Now they have all these limitations and caps and all this stuff. I told you my frustration on finding insurance, and I'm like, finally I found it, but man, it took me a long time. I can imagine somebody that's not in the insurance world, they're just getting screwed or just going ahead and taking policies. Like I see a lot of people with these Ken policies, like, oh, I'm so happy with Ken. And it's like, oh, cool. You're happy with $5,000 cap on sewer, $10,000 on water, and $10,000 on mold. You're cool with that? Because I'm not.
Yeah, what they really should have said was, what they're saying is, I'm happy I got coverage.
Right. At a cheap price.
Right. That's all they're saying. That's all they're really saying is, I'm glad I found coverage. And that's where it'll end when they have a loss.
Until they have a storm.
I'll agree with him. I truly believe that homeowners these days are buying insurance because their mortgage is saying they have to have it, not because they ever expect to have a claim, which is why I believe the nightmare. Well, I don't think anybody in Florida that's ever been through the claims process before has any idea what's coming if a new storm hits. They have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they don't. And when it does, they're going to finally find out. They have to round, and now they're going to find out exactly what's going to happen. Claims are going to exist. Service providers are still going to do what they're doing. There's not enough managed care providers out there, so they're going to have to use independent contractors like the folks a part of my Restoration Association of Florida, which are independent contractors that help folks, and they can bill directly to the insurance company. Much different now. It used to be done on assignment of benefits, just like your windshield. Right. You used to be able to call anybody in the phone book and say, I want my windshield replaced, and it's free, right? Because it's included in your policy, right? The $0 deductible. It's really not free, but whatever. But now it's all Safe-Light because they changed the law, and they said now it's illegal for you to use an assignment of benefits. Mm-hmm. So you can't get paid directly as an independent contractor, and you can't get an assignment anymore. And it made made it illegal for glass shops to even advertise.
Yeah, exist essentially.
Right. It's
I
crazy.
actually got my window replaced. It was Florida. I had my car up in North Carolina for a couple months, and then I drove it to South Carolina, and I had a tree fall from the back of my cabin on top of my windshield. Oh. And because the law had changed in Florida, I had to get the windshield replaced properly. I think it was $1,100 for the windshield to be replaced on my Audi in South Carolina because of the changes in the laws here.
Wow.
That's what I was told anyway. I don't know the facts behind that because I didn't do the research and I don't adjust auto claims.
Yeah, well, you're not allowed to use whoever you want anymore. Mm-hmm. They made it very. I don't even know. They're just pushing everybody to Safe-Light right now.
Well, I mean, obviously in Safe-Light, and I don't know this to be fact, but my understanding is that Safe-Light is owned by a bunch of insurance companies.
Right, they were, and they were owned by a snake farm, and then they're sold, and they're just owned by a conglomeration of.
Is that what it is? Okay.
I mean, and they were the ones that came out with Xactimate, which is the per unit cost estimating program that everybody uses. You know, they had sold it to Xactware or whatever like that, but they formed it.
Right.
State Farm did. I mean, they're behind a lot of these tomfooleries. Let's just say that. But yeah,
you mind, Richie, I just wanted to bring up two new things that are now being put into effect into the laws. Just want to make sure people are aware out there about it. One, all adjusters, not just public adjusters, but all adjusters are now required to list their license type on their business card and marketing material. So if they come out to your house from an insurance company and they're an emergency adjuster, it's required that it's listed as an emergency adjuster. If they're an out-of-state adjuster, it would be required that they're an out-of-state adjuster. These are important things to know because emergency adjusters usually are not experienced and are just licensed, after a 2-week course somewhere. They take a quick exam and boom, they're out in the field and they have no idea what they're doing. And most of the time they'll write a roof estimate when meanwhile your house is in total loss. But I'm not out of state, don't know the building codes here. They don't know the state regulations and laws, and they have no idea what they're doing when it comes to Florida law. So there's a lot of reasons why you should look at that. So I would mandate that you get a resident licensed adjuster coming out from the insurance company if they're going to come out. So at least you have the ability to file a complaint against them with DFS. And then the other new requirement that I saw is that public adjusters are no longer allowed to be out there adjusting claims as adjusters self-appointed. They have to create a public adjusting firm. So if your adjuster is not with a public adjusting firm with their license displayed, the license of the firm, not the license of the adjuster, it has to be on the contract as of July 1st of 2024. So coming up for hurricane season, then you can't technically, they're not legal adjusters to be out helping you on the claim. They have to be either working for a firm or the actual firm themselves has to be their firm.
Right. So there's like a business firm license for public adjusters now.
Something new.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. It's been there for a couple of years, but a lot of people haven't decided to get a firm license. And there's certain requirements to be a firm too, like having a specific office, having your license hung. But what's happened before that, it wasn't an appointed entity. So what a lot of people did was just create a dummy appointed entity, but you didn't even need that to self-appoint. So what happened is all these people rushed into the public adjusting industry and they self-appointed themselves without creating the entity or the public adjusting firm. And now it's against the law for them to be out signing contracts with any homeowner in the state of Florida without having the actual firm set up and registered with the Department of Financial Services. So just making a point out there. If you're hiring a public adjuster, make sure he's working for a licensed firm and you get the licensed firm number, which is accessible to check on the DFS website.
That's right. That's right. It's all there and available for you to check. Licensee search on the Florida DFS website, just like it is for contractors under the DBPR website as well. Verify a license, my mold assessment and remediation license, contractor license, everything is available right there online for you to go check out. So make sure you check out your vendors. Good point. Make sure that they are active and they have insurance on all parts of it, general liability, workers' comp. That is very important. There's law changes that have changed for workers' compensation as well. They need to be registered. The workers need to be verified through each company. That was last year that passed, and that should already be forward. And so many changes have occurred in the last year and even 2 years. So to just do this. Work with the right professionals, the ones that are up to date with the current market trends like we are. We talk about this all the time. So we hope that you do get some good advice here by listening to the show. Just be prepared. Storm season is coming up here in the state of Florida. Have these things already set up in your cell phone. Be ready to go. Contact your public adjuster or be ready to contact a public adjuster. Have an attorney that you're going to be working with already set up. I'm telling you ahead of time, especially by experience, to get this stuff set up ahead, because after a storm happens, everything's chaotic. And so be prepared ahead of time. Like we always say, take photos of your property, do a quick inventory of your things to know if you're underinsured as well. That's the other problems that people are having, is that they're underinsured for the value of the house. So now is the time to make those changes before storm season comes. So
that's a really important thing to bring up to people. If you have a house that you've owned for 3 or 4 years and it was through COVID and inflation has appreciated your house and you're very excited, which I'm happy for you that you've made a lot of money on the value of your home. The problem is most people have never called their insurance company to raise the value of their coverage structure part of their policy to make sure their house is actually covered for the value if it were ever to be suffer a total loss or a large loss from a hurricane.
Or even contents. I mean, if you look around and you're like, okay, how much would it cost me to replace everything hanging on my wall, the TVs and dressers and things like that? And if it's more than 50,000, more than 100, I mean, isn't contents usually around 50 grand or something like that? You have to ask for more coverage if you have more assets. Like, and I think Hans has a great story about the garage, the coverage B that this person had, like an expensive either an automobile or something that they couldn't get covered because there wasn't enough coverage in their other building coverages.
We're talking about the coverage B. Actually, well, there's coverage A. Coverage A is your house. What's interesting, I do a lot of mediations with obviously with insurance companies, and whenever they start talking, they usually first thing they tell my client is you have coverage A of $350,000, whatever it is, for the dwelling, and they say it as if to impress their insured that they have a huge amount of money available to them, when the reality is almost none of the money is available at all to you unless the house burns to the ground.
Right.
At that point, then that number means something. But they always say, yeah, and coverage A is $350,000. And so I think insurers are like, woo, I got lots of coverage. You're like, no, you don't. But you were talking about the limitations, the exclusions, all those things. But I think it's funny they always mention that in the beginning. But coverage B is other structures like a what's from you? A she shed,
mm-hmm.
or I guess perhaps a man cave. You can build a man cave out there.
Absolutely.
So that kind of thing. So that's normally like as little as 5% or 10% of your coverage A. Essentially, and David obviously can speak to this also, is that generally coverage A is your dwelling, B is your other structures, C is your personal property, and D is your loss of use. C, which is your personal property, is normally half or less of coverage A. Coverage B, which is your other structures, is normally maybe up to 25%, usually more like 10 or 15%. It's all based usually typically off of coverage A. So if you have something that is very nice, your policy is going to exclude or limit almost everything. So if you own a lot of thimbles, then you're like, oh, they're all $20 a piece, but you have 1,000 of them. That became a collection under the insurance policy because you collect them. And so all of a sudden, instead of getting $1,000, $200 a piece for your 1,000, all of a sudden they're like, no, you have $2,500 limit on collections. And you're like, I'm not really a collector. I just have a lot of them. Well, having a lot of them is being a collector. And you're like, oh. And then they apply that. Silverware, guns, gold bullion, artwork, jewelry, all that stuff has heavy limits on it unless you get a specific rider that is then additional coverage you pay for whatever that personal property may be.
Wow.
Jewelry is you said jewelry, and I just want to point that out. Like literally a single watch that I have would blow out my policy on what's allowed for jewelry. So just remember, if you're if you have jewelry in your home, gold, silver, watches, there's a cap usually that's outside of your personal property cap. So if it's 50,000, sometimes it's 2,500 for jewelry, even though you thought you had 50,000 of coverage. Same thing with guns. I have a gun collection, and I have one here and one in North Carolina, which probably wouldn't be covered under the current policy I have. So it'd be up to me if I wanted to call my insurance provider in North Carolina, where my home is up there, to add additional insurance for that gun collection.
Supplemental insurance, man. It's the difference between surplus lines and your HO3, HO4, or HO5 policies. Negotiable versus non-negotiable. There you go. I've learned that a while back. Being your surplus lines being a negotiable policy, meaning that you can add, take away, and all that to your liking. So if you needed to have a certain amount of coverage, like a Lloyd's of London policy, for instance, would be like, okay, I have 300,000 in jewelry, I have a Picasso, I have this, and you get that type of coverage as needed. Your HO3 policy, I guess the point of the story is on a regular HO3 policy that's just given to you and you think you're covered, look around, make sure that you are covered. Can you rebuild your house for coverage A, right? Can you rebuild your she shed for coverage B, right? Can you replace your contents from coverage C limits? Those are the questions you need to ask yourself. Can you replace drywall and mold and such like that from your mold? Do I have enough for, your ALE matters and such like that? If I didn't have a kitchen for a year, what's that going to cost me? Those are some real thoughts that you need to talk to your agent about to make sure you have a policy. When I took my mold coverage from 10,000 to 50,000, It was like $8.
Right.
I was like, okay, cool. So, I mean, I did it, and now I have, I know I'm a mold inspector. I know that there's mold everywhere. So if water were to, to devastate my house, I know that there's certain dry out and there's certain amount of that'll go under mold. So I want to make sure I'm covered under both. So I didn't do the limited water damage cap at $10,000. I was like, I don't want that. So I went with the company. I went with Loggerhead Insurance, which was great. If you're listening now, go check them out. It was AAA executives went to Tampa in 2022, opened up Loggerhead. I don't have any of that limited water damage caps or anything like that, and have a great policy at a great price. So there you go. That's a little spin for them, and good for them, because I couldn't find insurance that didn't have all those caps and limitations. Yeah. So anyways, check your policy. Know what you have.
Though, Richie, is that probably the richest, the most important thing you mentioned there is the $10,000 water cap. There's a lot of companies now, and there's not a single agent out there that's telling anybody when they sign them up for their policy, when they sell them their home, that's saying, hey, be careful you don't have a water loss, or your pipes are old, or you have cast iron underneath your subfloor, or they're not telling you this because they don't care. But people don't know to ask that. So if there's one thing you can take away from this conversation is to call your insurance company and find out if you have a $10,000 water cap. And if you do, it's probably a good time to start looking for another insurance company.
Yeah. That's right. I did. And I literally switched after I only had it for a couple of weeks, because it renewed before I got my 4-point inspection and wind mit. But I did that, and that's what insurance companies are prepping you to do, even though they're supposed to every 3 years assess all their risk. But what do? They give it to us and make us go hire a home inspector to give them what they want, whatever. Either way, I got my savings. It got them to feel safe to give me that good enough of premiums that I liked at the or the coverage that I liked at the premium that I liked as well. Right. So anyways, with that said, I want to wrap up the show. I want to thank you guys for listening. Contractor Talk with Richie Kidwell, David Dwyer, the Experienced Public Adjusters. When you need a public adjuster, give them a call. Look them up online, experiencepublicadjusters.com. Thank you for being on the show. And then Hans Kennon with now Kennon Law Group. KennonLawGroup.com is where you're going to find them, or 407-464-HANS. I'm your host, Richie Kidwell. Thanks again for joining us. We'll have some new material for you next week, and we'll talk to you guys then. See you.